As women, we have all heard these terms: cottage cheese thighs and orange peel thighs. And as men, you've probably heard this said about women before, or maybe you've even said it yourself. That's what we're going to dive into today: cellulite. What is it? What can you do about it? Can you actually get rid of cellulite without doing some of these fancy, expensive treatments that are out on the market? And do those creams, those expensive creams, do they work? Let's dive into the show. So, first of all, what is cellulite? It is simply subcutaneous. And when I say subcutaneous, that is that fat that you can just pinch an inch. It's not the hard, visceral fat that we worry about with our metabolism and with cardiovascular disease. It's that pinch an inch annoying fat. And what causes the cellulite is this subcutaneous fat. If you can think of pantyhose with those little bitty holes, it's kind of just peeping through the connective tissue. Now, you may have noticed your husband, your boyfriend, your brother, your best male friend, best male buddy doesn't have this annoying cellulite that seems to pop up around. Mainly for women, it's going to be the hips, the thighs, the butt, right around the glutes, places you don't want it to show up and it's unsightly, or even the back of the arms. That's something I have seen with women that I've worked with in the past, particularly if they're over the age of 50, 55, and 60. So, why is this? What causes it? And we're going to dive into that. And I have a few notes right out in front of me that I want to make sure that I don't miss a single point with this, because this is a question that I so frequently receive from women. I've dealt with it myself at varying times, depending on my body fat proportions and where I'm at. When I'm competing, that tends not to be a problem. The body fat is relatively low. There are other issues with the collagen in the skin when you lose body fat, but that's a topic for a different show. But when I was in an off season, it would pop back up on my body in various places. And I'm going to talk about what we can specifically do. And there's several different steps. And now you need to be patient with this process because it's not going to disappear overnight. It's not like you rub on some magic cream. It's not an overnight thing. Even if you go for one of those expensive treatments that they have at spas, those tend to take time to work as well. Like you might notice a little bit of a reduction, but then over time is when that really works. So we talked about what it is, and 90% of women will deal with this at some point within their lives. The lucky 10%, oh boy, am I jealous of you. So it pops up. We talked about hips, thighs, back of the arm, on the butt. Number one reason that we see this problem is gender. We simply are, where women, our connective tissue is different. The pattern of the connective tissue is different in women than it is from men. And then women also just naturally hold a higher body fat percentage. Now, when I'm talking about a higher body fat percentage, I am talking about the essential body fat, what you need to be alive. And the reason we hold a higher amount is simple. In our younger years, we are childbearing, nursing. We need to have a healthy body fat percentage to have that baby and to feed that baby. Now, estrogen naturally causes us to accumulate more body fat, and this is when we're younger, more body fat around the hips and the butt, the glutes, the thighs, that lower body, because we have what's called alpha 2 receptors within these areas. And these receptors block fat burning, so we're naturally holding on to the fat there, and it contributes to the fibrous connection patterns as well that I talked about that are completely different in women than they are in men. Now, next up is basically, I'm going to go back to that essential body fat. Men will typically have for essential body fat anywhere from 3 to 5%, women 10 to 12. When I used to compete in bikini bodybuilding, I would go down to about 12%, sometimes 10. It just depended on the year and how my body responded. But I would go down to that 10 to 12%, which was often, very difficult because I've talked about this in the past. You achieve this look for this stage, this very low body fat, but you can't hold on to that. So I'm certainly not suggesting that you take your body fat down that low. It is not necessary. If you're not a competitor, you're not doing that sport, I'm going to give you some other options. Next up, we have age. So, age is a big one. And for the majority of my female listeners, you are going to be in that category 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, and up, even over 70. So, the collagen fibers break down. This naturally happens with age, and our skin thins. This is the chronological aging process. And of course, hormones play into this too. That's the endocrine system. That's a different type of aging that's based upon the decline in hormones. I need to distinguish there. You have the loss of estrogen, and as we lose estrogen, we lose the protection for muscle. We also lose the integrity of our skin. Our skin gets drier, it gets thinner, the collagen breaks down. We lose testosterone. Not every woman, but many will have lower testosterone rates. So the combination of losing these two hormones can cause us to lose muscle if we're not being proactive with our nutrition and our strength training. We also have an increase in our fat cell size. And I've talked about this before. This is the reason for the belly fat. Often that accumulates around the midsection. And then human growth hormone decreases pretty dramatically. At the same time, you have the stress hormone cortisol rising, and then you begin to have blood glucose regulation issues, which I've talked about quite a bit on past podcasts. I'm not going to go into the whole in-depth discussion on that, but basically, it can lead to insulin resistance, higher insulin, and then you've got this perfect storm. So you eat, it's natural for blood sugar to rise, insulin comes in, cleans up the mess, so to speak, shuttles that blood sugar into the cells later on for energy. A problem occurs when this process is going on too many times throughout the day. So you're having those blood spikes too many times throughout the day, insulin coming in too often. Over time, the body can cease to recognize it, and insulin is pouring in, but it's not doing its job anymore. And then you have this excess blood glucose. So, all of this together, the higher stress hormone, cortisol, which is our fight or flight hormone, we need it, it's good. But when it's dysregulated, that is not so good. So, if it's too high, too low, or if it's high when it's supposed to be low, for instance, at night, or it's low when it's supposed to be high. Again, that would be your morning time. That can be an issue too, where it's flipped around. So we have all of this happening, and then you add in genetics. So some ethnicities will naturally have a thinner skin than others. Many of the Caucasian ethnicities will have that thinner skin. The collagen breaks down quicker, and then we're more likely to see that cellulite. Then, of course, there's all the lifestyle habits in here. I mentioned nutrition. If nutrition is not dialed in, that's going to be an issue. Lack of sleep, high stress levels, smoking is another one that can cause the integrity of the skin to break down, and then lack of the right types of exercise. So, what can we do? Let's go through a few options, and you might want to replay this, take a few notes, and at least start with maybe a couple of these options and then work in some other things over time. You want to be able to shrink the fat cells. And so I mentioned that when this happens with me in a competition, when I competed in the past, that cellulite would disappear. Like I said, I would have other issues with collagen breaking down, but the cellulite in and of itself would disappear as those body fat cells shrank down. So, protein is going to help. This is the nutrition piece. This is part of the lifestyle piece. You want 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight. So, I tend to weigh, it varies. Low side is 118, 119. That's a little low. I don't like to weigh that. But I typically go anywhere from 120 to 123. I kind of go back and forth depending on the day, water retention, things like that. So I like my protein at about 120 grams per day. I'm small bone. That's a good weight for me. I'm not overly thin. So I try to get that protein on a daily basis. So why am I doing that? So first of all, it's thermogenic. So it's more thermogenic than a carbohydrate and it's more thermogenic than fat. We need fat in our diet, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But that protein is going to burn more energy, require more energy for your body to break it down and assimilate it in than if you eat, say, a piece of bread or if you ate a bag of nuts. So you're going to work harder with, let's say, that grass fed, grass finished steak than you are with the bag of nuts or the piece of bread. So it's thermogenic. You're burning calories, so to speak. It's filling. So if you get that from me, 120 grams, it leaves less room for the junk. It leaves less room for the junky carbs or the bad fats because I'm full and I'm not craving those things as much. It's helping to build your muscle through amino acids. Those amino acids help you to build muscle and retain muscle, which is very important. Then you add in the strength training. So if you can think of your skin as kind of a deflated balloon, I know that's an odd scenario, but I used to use this when I was personal training with women to get them to understand the importance of the strength training for actually improving their appearance overall, their body, their aesthetics, but also even just the skin. Because what happens is the muscle is pushing up against the skin, creating a smoother, tighter appearance. It's also increasing your metabolism. If you have more quality lean muscle and less adipose body fat tissue, in particular that visceral fat that we don't want, you're going to have an increase in your metabolism. It makes you appear tighter in that kind of quote unquote toned look that all of the women tend to want. It improves collagen production. It helps with blood glucose. I talked about being insulin resistant. We want to be insulin sensitive, which is the opposite of being resistant. And we can do that by increasing our lean muscle mass. And that muscle acts as a sink, as a disposal for excess blood glucose. If you don't have the muscle, there's no place for that glucose to go if you've got excessive amounts of it and you're having a problem with that. Then you add in the right type of cardio. So I like to do, typically, I'm dealing with some back problems right now, so I'm doing something a little bit different. I'll just run by that in a moment. But you want a little bit of HIIT, which is high intensity interval training. Now, I'm going to be straight up honest with you. I don't like HIIT. I've never liked it. It tends to just be so uncomfortable that I just don't want to go there. So I get it. I would much rather go out for a long walk, a bike ride, a hike, much rather, trust me. But a little bit of HIIT, and we're talking about for a HIIT session, 4 to 8 minutes. Now that doesn't include the relative rest. That's your work. So let's say you're doing, oh, I'm just going to give an example of a 20-minute workout where you're on the Stairmaster and maybe you're warming up 3 to 5 minutes and then you're doing some interval training where you go back and forth. It could be 15 seconds on and 30 where you back it off. It could be 30 seconds on and a minute where you back it off. It could be 30 and 30. It could be a minute and a minute. It's going to depend a lot on your fitness level. For me, it's difficult to get my heart rate up. I have to really work at it. Once it's up, I can shorten my intervals, but initially I kind of have to go a minute on and 30 seconds off. And then when my heart rate goes up to where it needs to be, I can shorten those intervals. And you want about 4 to 8 total minutes of the work of the interval training. So it's not that much. Do that, I don't know, 2 to 3 times a week. And then add in your walking, add in more of your steady state, add in your daily movement with that. So the HIIT training, what that does is it creates this oxygen deficit. And so your body's working very hard to recover and it's burning more fat after the workout. Now, as I mentioned, I'm currently not doing that because with the HIIT, even on stairs, I have to go so quickly and take that resistance up so high that it's creating some strain on my lower back. So I'm temporarily backing off the HIIT and focusing a little bit more on my daily movement and a little bit of steady state, and definitely still doing my strength training, but I'm modifying, especially on my lower body days. I am modifying that with different exercises and load just because of the back issues I'm experiencing right now. So I wanted to do a little aside note that I do recommend the HIIT, but I'm not currently doing the HIIT with good reason. So, next up, we need to look at the cortisol levels. As I mentioned, it is a hormone that is necessary. So, I don't want you to get the idea that cortisol is bad. It is necessary. It's rather complex in the sense that we need it, but we need it at the right time and in the right levels. So, in the past, and we're talking 100 plus years ago, that fight or flight would be ignited in a situation where you had to make a decision to kind of freeze, run, fight, whatever that was. And then once the danger passed, everything, all of your hormone levels would go back to normal, cortisol back to normal. What we have now is this is being ignited throughout the day. So things like a teenager that's giving you problems, a nasty text message, just daily stress, and maybe you didn't get enough rest and you're sitting in traffic, and we're just chronically uh, really jacking up these stress hormone levels at times and for a period of time that we weren't designed as human beings to do. So cortisol is what's called catabolic. So it breaks down muscle. Anabolic is when you're building up the muscle, catabolic is breaking down. And when you get too much of the catabolic, your body's under stress. It's in fight or flight. Say that really fast several times. It's going to break down the muscle and the tissue. And of course, that is not going to help at all with the cellulite that we're trying to get rid of. So you want to find ways to improve your cortisol levels. I recommend having them tested just to make sure that they are high enough in the morning, that they're not too low, because too low of cortisol can be an issue too. You start to get that adrenal burnout and be tired all the time. And if you're tired all the time, you can't be doing any of these suggestions that I have for you. So it works both ways. Cortisol can negatively infect or affect our body, whether it's too low or too high, or once again, whether it's dysregulated throughout the day. So test that and then have some stress management things in place. For me, it's prayer. That is my go to, and I will utter prayers throughout the day. It's not always a formal down on my knees. Sometimes it is, but it's a lot of times it's in the moment. I'm driving in the car or something happens and I'm just uttering that prayer, and it instantaneously lowers my stress levels. My breathing regulates, which brings me to breath work. I'm actually going to have an expert on breath work come on to the show. I believe it's in December that he'll be on, and I think you'll find that very helpful as well. And the right type of exercise can help relieve stress, daily movement, taking walks. If your pets don't stress you out, that can help. Meditation, yoga. The key is find something and get consistent with it, and find maybe more than one modality that you can turn to. And of course, it can be hard to measure how it's working, but I kind of measure it by how I'm feeling. If I feel that instantaneous calm, my breath is slowing down, I'm not doing that chest breathing, I'm doing more of the belly breathing, I'm not holding my breath, I know what I've done has been effective. And you can look at things like HRV, which is your heart rate variance. The best way to do this is with something like an Aura ring that measures your heart rate variance and your stress levels throughout the day and how well you are sleeping. Next up, we need to look at circulation. Circulation is imperative for our skin. We want a stimulation of blood and the lymphatic system through exercise. Foam rolling can help, massage, Theragun massage, dry brushing. and dry brushing can eliminate some of the fluid buildup to improve the circulation. Now, it was interesting. I have dry brushing, a whole module on stress relief within my Fit and Fierce 12-week program for women over 50. And I have a whole handout on dry brushing. And I actually had one of the clients say, "Oh, no, you have it all wrong. You're saying brush away from the heart, and you're supposed to go up to the heart." Turns out we were both right. What we do is we go from your lower body using long strokes up, and then when you're above your heart is when you go down. So you start out with the long strokes up, but once you're above the heart, you go down. Morning is generally the best, and it's generally the best right before a shower. Hydration. Water, it's very simple. I had Dr. Mike Van Thielen on the show. Shout out to him. I will link to that episode because he talks about longevity hacks, health hacks for living a long and healthy life with high quality. And really, one of the things that he talked about breathing, but he talks about hydration. And he suggested these waters, they're hydration mineral water. I actually purchased them. I don't receive any kind of commission or anything off of these. It's just a product that I'm trying and I'm really liking it. They are a bit pricey, so I'm just doing them once or twice a day. But what I find is I love it in the morning to start my day. And if I've had a night where I haven't slept as well, I do notice my energy levels being better when I start the day with the hydrogen mineral water. So I will link to that episode so you can check it out. And I'll even have a link to the water that I'm currently using. We need a minimum of half of our body weight in water, and that's the absolute minimum. And I'm going to talk about overhydration because that actually did come up with one of my clients. And so I want to address it here because I want to be very careful of the information that I give, that it is sound, good information. So I want to talk about the overhydration issue. So you have the minimum amount of water that you need. And then if you're exercising, you're going to do about 4 ounces every 15 minutes. If you're in a very hot climate, very dry, where you're parched, or very humid, where you're losing a lot of water, you're going to want to up that amount. You might want to do a clean electrolyte. And then the mineral water has a natural electrolyte. Um, Electrolytes are within that water, so that can help as well with the hydration. So, what about overhydration? So, the way this subject came up was I have a client who went into coaching, and she's still a client, but we do kind of a combination. We'll talk about what's going on in her business, and then I'll give a few pointers based on my years of experience, and then we'll of course talk about her fitness goals. And we were discussing how she had recommended a pretty high water content. I think it was 100 ounces to one of her clients, which generally is what I recommend as well, just about 100 ounces. Start with that, half your body weight, and then once you add in your activity level, any kind of heat or dryness or humidity, accounting for those factors, it comes in about right. Sometimes a gallon can even be appropriate. It's just depending on the individual. And she actually had a client that got sick from this because they were basically washing out all of their mineral content and overhydrating. Well, come to find out, this individual had an eating disorder and had a lot of health issues already, what did not have what they needed in their body, and then the water was washing things out. And so she did get sick, and you do see this happen from time to time. Where I've seen it happen was when I used to do marathons, and you'd be out there just stopping at every water station, hydrating, especially on a really hot day. And if you didn't have the electrolytes, you could actually overhydrate and wind up getting sick and wind up in the hospital. Now, it's rare, but I've seen it happen. So I just wanted to mention that being mindful of your hydration and how you hydrate is really important. So, dehydration is important because it raises stress hormones such as cortisol, when that's not going to help you get rid of the cellulite. It also causes us to store more fat, and it does this by it pulls the glycogen out of the liver turns it into fructose, and from there stores it as fat. Now, this is not the visceral fat, it is the subcutaneous fat, but still, if you're trying to reduce cellulite, probably not a good idea to be dehydrated. Next up is the red light therapy. And this just recently came on my radar. I had heard this on a podcast. And so I want to share the information here because I love red light for many, many reasons. But for cellulite, it can be very, very helpful. So, why is this? It helps to heal your skin by working at that deeper mitochondrial level. Now, just to kind of sum up the mitochondria, and they're pretty complex, and this is very simple. I realize it's not a scientific description, but they are that powerhouse of the cell. They're very important when it comes to aging, when it comes to your overall health and prevention of disease. We want to keep those mitochondria healthy. I've been taking a product called MitoPure. It's an excellent product that has, let me see if I can remember this, urolithin A, I believe, which is it's a lot of body of research behind it. I've been taking that. Again, I'm not affiliated with that company, but I have found that that's helped my skin, my energy levels quite a bit. So the red light helps with the integrity of the mitochondria, and it causes the release of nitric acid, which is actually a good chemical reaction. So nitric acid will widen your blood vessels, thus improving circulation. It brings this nutrients and oxygen from the blood flow into that area, and then it stimulates collagen production. And a lot of these modalities that are used at health spas are based on stimulating your collagen production. That is how they work. This will improve the texture and tightness of the skin. So I am actually getting ready to test this out, and then I will come back on. I will do the red light for a period of 6 months, and then I will come back on and tell you what the benefits were, and I'll be very honest with you what I personally see from it. So collagen, as I mentioned before, is very important, and you want to boost that collagen production. Once we hit menopause, we lose estrogen, that collagen breaks down, and it breaks down just from the aging process. Then when we hit 60, oh, that stuff is almost non-existent if we're not doing something to boost it. So it helps keep our skin healthy and elastic. It is a protein that maintains that elasticity. And as we age, collagen declines. You can boost it a couple of different ways. You can do a supplement. I prefer a powder, but I know there's little drinks, there's pills. You do want enough of it to make a difference. I believe I don't have my collagen right in front of me, so I don't want to misspeak, but I think about 10 grams or so I'm taking. If that is incorrect, I will correct it at a later time. But we also want to have the vitamin C, which helps to boost the collagen and helps it to work better. So a quality collagen powder, bone broth is 80% collagen. You can do a bone broth protein powder. That would be helpful as well. You could do that bone broth plus the collagen supplement, and then that would help to stimulate, and then the vitamin C supporting that. So the production of collagen is going to help the connective tissue, cellular rejuvenation, and repair your DNA. Pretty cool. Next up, we need to look at inflammation. Inflammation is not our friend if we're trying to lose body fat, if we want our skin to look good. It is just not going to help. So we want to reduce inflammation. And one of the things we can look at is, of course, the inflammatory foods within our diet. Now, for some people, it might be dairy. For others, it might be gluten or gluten and dairy. Some people are sensitive to eggs. Sugar is, of course, can cause some inflammation problems. Corn, soy, these are a few of the things, and seed oils. These are things like canola oil and soybean oil. There's I believe 7 of them. The dirty oils, we call them. And I'm not 100% perfect. If I'm going out to a restaurant or I'm on a cruise, probably some of it's getting in there. But I'm going to say 90% of the time, I'm keeping it out of my diet. So is a little bit seeping in here and there going to make or break things? No. It's the overall pattern that we're looking at. So I'm not looking at perfection here, I'm just looking at awareness. Now, you will have people say that the seed oils don't make a difference, but this is why I disagree. And it has to do with the ratio of omega 3s to omega 6. You want to have those omega 3s in your diet because they're anti inflammatory. Think of salmon, think of fish oil. So you want to swap out the seed oils for quality fats, such as those that are in salmon. If you're cooking using a good quality avocado oil or a good quality extra virgin olive oil, you want to avoid the ultra processed oils, which tend to have the seed oils. A lot of the gluten free foods, a lot of the vegan foods tend to have these oils, and they're very high in omega 6. And omega 6, if you get them too high, it can cause inflammation. So if you look back hundreds of years ago, we had a very different fatty acid profile. We had a low ratio of omega 6 to omega 3. That's not the case anymore. It's flipped around the other way. And so that's why I say bringing those omega 6s down by eliminating the seed oils can be good. Plus, they're rancid, and if you look at how canola oil is made, it's really pretty gross. It's heated. These oils can get toxic when they're heated to these high levels. So I personally feel that no fear mongering, but I feel that we're better off to eliminate these from our diet as much as possible. We talked about the food sensitivity. We want to look at that, and I am actually currently not recommending food sensitivity tests. I used to. I find that most of those tests are geared toward making money. You come back with all these sensitivities. They're recommending this huge protocol of hundreds of dollars of supplements. I'm just not a fan. And I found that sometimes they're not accurate. Sometimes they're telling people that they're sensitive to things that they're not sensitive to. And I recently had heard, and I forget which podcast when I mention podcasts, I only listen to reputable ones where people really dive into the science, but it was talking about this very thing of the the inflammation being caused by the seed oils. Now, cold plunging is another thing that we can look at, about 40 to 46 degrees and working up to 4 minutes twice a week. It activates your shiver response. I'm shivering just thinking about it. My office is a little cold today, which in turn can boost your metabolic rate and help turn your white fat into beige fat, which is more metabolically active. Okay, so I was not a big fan of cold plunging. I don't like cold things. I sleep with a heating pad. I love to sit in the sauna. I'm not a fan of being cold at all. But I was recently on a cruise with my husband, and we had access to a beautiful spa with many different things in there. So they had the sauna, they had the cold plunges, they had an Arctic room that you could stand in, which you weren't getting wet, but you were just standing in there getting cold. They had therapy pools. And I did a lot of sauna cold plunge, and then I would go do the therapy pools with the Arctic room. I have to say, I came back with zero inflammation. I came back a pound lighter. I had absolutely no water retention, no puffiness, and I was eating things that I don't normally eat. So I would have a few bites of a sourdough bread with some olive oil at dinner. Nothing crazy, but I would have a few bites of that. Or maybe a few bites of pasta that wasn't gluten free. Or I would have a little bit of a dessert. My husband and I would share a dessert. We were on vacation. I wasn't weighing and measuring food and eating tilapia and broccoli every meal. I was eating a wide variety of foods. I was watching the portion, but I honestly feel the combination of the movement that I did, portion control, and the sauna with the cold plunge, I am convinced that that helped with that inflammation. Then there are the creams. Do they actually work? Well, they can work temporarily, and I've tried these. They can actually have a temporary tightening effect. They generally have some type of caffeine in them, and caffeine has an active compound that prevents excessive accumulation of fat in the cells and stimulates fat breakdown. So it temporarily improves and increases the microcirculation of blood in the skin and temporarily tightens the skin. So it can be something to do leading up to a special event or in the summer. I've used them periodically. Sometimes I've mixed a little bit with my regular lotion, but they're not going to be a long term solution. They are a quick fix. And then with those fancy treatments you can get, yeah, they can work and stimulate the collagen and really help. And many of them help with losing the fat cells, breaking down the fat cells. But the problem is, if you don't make the changes in your lifestyle, you don't manage your stress, you don't make changes to your nutrition, you don't strength train, then you're probably going to wind up just getting cellulite back again and getting the body fat back again. So it's really something that's done in conjunction with lifestyle. So if you're considering that, I'm going to urge you to first do the lifestyle things and get them in place. And then if you're not seeing the results that you want, then maybe considering something that is a little bit is going to help you with that a little bit. So I hope this podcast was helpful for you. I want you to be on the lookout. I'm going to be opening the doors to my 7-day holiday shape and shred challenge. I've done it, the past couple of years, actually 3 years. And I started out, it was more of a lead, more of a freebie. They call it a lead magnet where somebody opts in with their email address and they get the challenge for free. But I decided last year to actually run it as a program and as a group program so that I could provide individual support. And I will be doing that again this year. Now, are you going to lose your cellulite in a week? No. Are you going to lose a substantial amount of weight in a week? No, I hope not. What you are going to do, the purpose of this is to really bring down the inflammation. And I like to do it the week after Thanksgiving. We've maybe started to eat some things we shouldn't have eaten. We're experiencing some bloating, and this can really help with that bloating. It can help calm your digestion down. You can lose a few pounds just in that inflammation. And then it can be a kickstart for a longer term program. It can also be something you repeat at the beginning of the new year to kickstart your program. Anytime you need to come back and rein that in, it can help you. It can help you with that. So we are going to be doing that, and I'm looking forward to it. So be looking for in the next couple of podcasts, I think it is, that I will be introducing that program and have a link to sign up. So I would love to hear from you. I am easy to reach on Instagram. That's the best place at Carol Covino Fitness. My Facebook was hacked. I had to completely do away with my page. I had to do away with my business page. I did not want to do this. I was hacked 3 times in a row, and it was done in such a horrible way. I'm not going to go into details. It was mortifying, and I was kicked out of Facebook for weeks. I was locked out. I couldn't get back in. It was so frustrating. I was in the middle of running a program. So I'm back on. I did delete that account. My IT guy suggested, he said, Carol, you're probably better off. You're going to keep getting hacked. Just get rid of it. So I did. And I am debating starting a new business account, but you can find me just Carol Covino on Facebook, and I would love for you to connect with me there as well. You can email me, carol@carolcovino.com, and I look forward to hearing from you very, very soon. Do check out the links in the show notes, and until we talk again, I wish you every blessing wherever you are in the world. Bye for now.